Chiefs Kingdom, and welcome back into Win or Lose Chiefs News. I am your host, Alex Liu, and this is my monthly podcast video on the channel in honor of training camp officially starting. So this is the monthly video that I have been saying I was going to put out in July. I actually just finished writing a blog post covering all things, not in detail, but just training camp, some other things like the Eric Bieniemy news with his wife, a little bit of Patrick Mahomes, the new stadium renderings, and just some things to look forward to in August with the preseason games right around the corner at the conclusion and really during the end of training camp. But before we actually get into the bulk of what I want to talk about today, just obviously, first and foremost, thoughts and prayers just go out to Eric Bieniemy, his wife Mia, and her recovery. I'm glad to hear that she is okay and doing better. She's alive, she's stable, hospitalized. I think she had surgery and she's recovering. So nothing but wishing her the best, in addition to EB, praying for their family and just, without really knowing the full extent of the situation and why what happened, just want to offer my love, support, just out to them and anyone close to the family who might be just dealing with and trying to process all of this, and really also just to the players, coaches, staff, everyone in and around that organization from the front office down who knows Eric Bieniemy, who has known him and his family for years. This is definitely a very challenging thing to try to navigate, very sensitive, delicate, all of those things. And it really just goes beyond football. At the end of the day, football is just a game. This is real life that we're talking about, and someone's life and their livelihood. And I just pray for Eric Bieniemy's son as well. Clearly there, maybe have been some kind of deep-rooted family issues or things that go well beyond the knowledge and awareness of most of us as Chiefs fans. And I am wearing today my Kansas City Strong shirt, which is something that I bought following the Super Bowl 58 parade shooting that happened in Kansas City. Very unfortunate. And even though this applied to back then, I kind of keep this shirt, for times like this. And no one saw this coming. I mean, how could you? But what makes Chiefs fans in Kansas City so special is not only is it my hometown, but it's just such a tight-knit community, a very friendly city in the Midwest, which is, a much slower paced, very friendly part of the country. And so this is just my way of kind of emotionally kind of supporting and connecting with what EB and his family could potentially be going through. And just a side note on that, I wrote about this a little bit in my blog post, but I wouldn't say it hits close to home for me, but I do have a personal connection to Ashburn, Virginia, and Loudoun County, where this shooting took place. I partially grew up in Northern Virginia the first half of my childhood after moving away from Kansas City when I was 3 years old. I lived in South Riding, Virginia, which is in technically, I think, Chantilly, but it's within Loudoun County. And Ashburn was, pretty much right next door, only like a town or two over. And I grew up playing in the Dulles Little League for baseball around that area, and I had a lot of games at various fields in Ashburn. So I don't know the exact spot or neighborhood of where this incident took place, but just seeing that Eric Bieniemy, seeing the news and seeing that he left Chiefs training camp pretty much immediately to fly back to Virginia, and that is where his family's home is, and it makes sense. I imagine maybe they settled there around the time when he was working for the Washington Commanders. So just knowing the area and me living in Maryland currently, and just knowing that this is, kind of just happened a little bit over the Maryland-Virginia border, kind of personal for me, and just having a connection to that area in my lifetime. So just wanted to throw that out there. But nothing but thoughts and prayers to Eric Bieniemy, his wife Mia, their son as well. What the son did, shooting the mom, is obviously awful and terrible news to hear, but I can only imagine, maybe what escalated up to that point and, what their issues might be. But just hoping Eric Bieniemy takes all the time that he needs to work through and process things and handle things with his family. And again, at the end of the day, football is just a game. We love the game. We love the Chiefs as Chiefs fans, but this is real life. It's much more important than football. I mean, I think naturally, not only myself, but a lot of other people that, I have heard just online on YouTube, different Chiefs YouTubers and podcasters kind of talking about, like, how does this potentially impact the Chiefs and the offense in particular? This happened Sunday, so we hadn't even gotten into full training camp yet. Full training camp started today, Wednesday, July 29th, earlier in the morning. And so, we hadn't even really gotten into training camp with EB present there. Who knows what kind of impacts that this might have from a offensive development standpoint, play installs, scheme, just preparation in general. I mean, even when EB was here in his first stint with the Chiefs, as he worked his way up to OC, Andy Reid, on really, I think, any team that Andy Reid has been head coach for between the Eagles and the Chiefs, Andy Reid has always been the true play caller. We all know that. He's been the executive decision maker. It's said that the offensive coordinator pretty much just relays the play to Mahomes or to whatever quarterback that we've had in the past. But nonetheless, I mean, you can't take away the fact that Eric Bieniemy is a crucial part of the offense from a coaching side of things coming back to the Chiefs for his second stint. And there's a reason that we went out and rehired him. It sucked when he left. The offense definitely changed and kind of took some steps back. And between the time that he left and went to the Washington Commanders, and then I think he went to UCLA and maybe even the Chicago Bears for a brief time. And I think he actually went backwards at some points, back down to like running backs coach. I don't really foresee this having any immense impacts, like the offense isn't going to function and the offense is going to be worse off without him. And that's not taking anything away from Eric Bieniemy, but Joe Blameyer, who's the passing coordinator, was appointed as the interim fill-in temporary replacement indefinitely, pretty much, just because there is no timetable for when Bieniemy will return. And how can you put some kind of timetable on this? It's not like Eric Bieniemy is the one recovering from some kind of injury. I mean, this is a devastating tragedy / crisis, and really it could have been a lot worse. So you can't put a timeline on something like that, on family matters. I mean, we saw it even last year with Joshua Simmons, left tackle for the Chiefs. I mean, he stepped away to handle some personal family matters, I think out in California, and he was gone for at least a few weeks, I want to say. As much as you miss that person and will miss Eric Bieniemy at training camp, and you would, of course, love to have them back with you, he needs to take all the time in the world that he needs. I'm not really expecting this, but you can't throw out the possibility of we have no idea. This is still so fresh. It happened earlier this week. Who knows if he's back within a week or two? Who knows if he misses potentially all of training camp or the majority of training camp? What if we get into August and we're in a couple of preseason games and Bieniemy's still not back? I'm just throwing it out there. It's very much possible that he misses a substantial amount of time, and maybe we even get into late August or the regular season, or, I'm just throwing this idea out there. What if there's something not like systemic or deep rooted, but what if there's just like a whole nother level deeper of a family issue going on where he feels the need to maybe even step away from the Chiefs and football altogether? You never know. I'm not saying that's going to happen. Please, Chiefs fans, don't attack me and saying, oh, that's a huge overreaction, but you just never know. I mean, things happen in, people's lives at work or wherever, where you do have to kind of take some time away. Because again, real life is more important. I mean, there are players who take a year off or so. I think former Chiefs running back Damian Williams took a year off from football, and I don't even know if he ever came back. But Eric Bieniemy, all of these players, coaches, they are regular people just like us at the end of the day. So we don't know if and when Bieniemy will return. The assumption is that he'll be back at some point, but Again, no one's putting a timeline or some kind of expectation on that. So in the meantime, my thought is that I think the Chiefs players, the entire offense, really the whole team, the coaching staff, I think they're all going to rally around this. They care about Bieniemy. They're concerned about this, but I think they're going to work. They're going to work, I think, even harder and maybe be extra motivated. Like, hey, let's really come together for the sake of EB. Let him handle his business, and when he's ready to come back, we want him to hopefully see this offense really kicking it in high gear. I'm sure all off-season leading up to even the mini camps, EB and Andy Reid were probably in their offices coming up with game plans, schemes, just different plays, different maybe approaches compared to what they used to have with the type of personnel that they had during EB's first stint with the Chiefs. I have to think that overall the Chiefs offense is going to be just fine even with EB's absence. Things like this happen, and there's always a next man up mentality, even with coaches. If this was Andy Reid, you would have to assume that an assistant coach, a coordinator would step up and take his place if need be. Unfortunately, it's kind of business and life continues as usual. So while he's away, I think the team is going to be just fine. They're just going to have to make adjustments and adapt. And this is probably going to be an area and an opportunity to further cement and improve communication with the quarterbacks and all of the other assistant coaches surrounding Coach Reid and Joe Blameyer. I think similar to like when Mahomes went down last year, or any time that Mahomes has missed time due to injury, the backup QB steps up, and that whole room, and even Mahomes while he's injured, like he's wearing the headset, kind of like if it was a week 17 or week 18 and the Chiefs have already locked up a playoff spot and Mahomes is resting. Next man up mentality. I think the Chiefs are going to be just fine. It's unfortunate what happened to Mia Bieniemy, but I'm glad that, Eric Bieniemy, clearly a very good husband and father, to respond immediately and say, I've got to leave. I've got to go handle this. I really don't have a concern about the Chiefs and their offense lacking or being off because of this. I think this is only going to make the team stronger as a unit, but I think it's fair for people to be curious or potentially have concerns of like, how could this impact the Chiefs offense when you don't have your offensive coordinator there, that voice, that presence, that mindset. Those are just kind of some opening thoughts following just the story that came out last Sunday about this. Very shocking and sad to hear, but I'm glad that overall Mia Bieniemy is okay and she's alive. And again, this could have been much worse. So aside from Eric Bieniemy and his wife and all of that they're dealing with, one thing I also wanted to talk about before we actually get to like the actual training camp stuff. And again, I'm not going to go down like kind of the football nerdiness side of things or route today. I'm not going to get too nitty gritty in the weeds about a lot of individual, standouts, efforts, all that stuff. But I will cover training camp a little bit, some questions and things that I'm thinking about. But one of the things I wanted to kind of briefly talk about outside of this season is the latest renderings, I guess more official renderings that have come out for the Chiefs' brand new $3 billion domed stadium that is going to be built over the next few years. And it is where the Chiefs will move to debut in the 2031 season. I wrote about this on my blog's Leaving Arrowhead page, and I will leave a link to not just my blog down below in the description of this video, but I'm going to leave a link, even though it's linked in the blog post for the training camp episode. I'm going to leave a direct link to that Leaving Arrowhead page on my blog. And that's on WordPress. It's just Win or Lose Chiefs News, but that's my WordPress blog edition. I talked about how, I think when it was eventually decided over the last like year and a half or so that the Chiefs are leaving Arrowhead, it's kind of bittersweet. It's sad. I'm always going to miss and love Arrowhead, but we had our time there. We had our memories there. Eventually, you can only renovate so much, and then you're going to have to move on to a new home. Overall, the most important thing is that the Chiefs are staying in Kansas City. I mean, they weren't going to leave. The whole border war between Missouri and Kansas, I get it. If you live on either side, I understand you're selfish. I shouldn't really say selfish, but I understand people having selfish reasons for like, hey, don't leave Missouri. Don't leave this county. People in Kansas are happy, right? A lot of it gets very political, and I don't currently live out there. I have not lived out there since I was a baby. And even though I'm moving there, I'm indifferent to the politics. I don't really care whether it's in Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas. I don't care if it's on the Kansas side, the Missouri side. I just want it to be in the Kansas City area. As much that as I'm sad that they are going to be leaving Arrowhead here in a few years, with a new stadium does come some excitement. I mean, the Royals are doing the same thing, and it was just kind of a matter of time before both teams eventually did this. I wish that, it could be a fully open-aired stadium. I understand the Hunt family and the Chiefs front office management wanting a stadium that can be a little bit more multi-purpose and not just for Chiefs games and then like concerts during like the spring, summer, and fall. I really, really cared about the loudness, the noise level of Arrowhead, the barbecue, the tailgating, all of that, ease of access in terms of like getting to the stadium, parking. With these new renderings and what we read and learned about what is now being projected design-wise for the new stadium, it's very clear and apparent that President Mark Donovan talked about this a lot. There's pros and cons to everything. You're going to have to make some sacrifices, but they really made an effort to instill a lot of similarities and elements from Arrowhead in the new stadium. The one thing that they really just could not do is have this be open air. And when I first saw the renderings, it's really funny. A lot of people were saying, because it has a similar shape to Arrowhead, but because it's enclosed, people were saying that it looks like a Pringle chip. It looks like a Pringle chip is sitting on top of the stadium. I forget how you say this, what the name of the like clear glass windows panels on the top of the renderings are, because it's not an enclosed dome where it's just like a roof. It's not like the Mercedes-Benz dome down in New Orleans or like the kind of dome that the Atlanta Falcons have. It's like the Minnesota Vikings stadium where it's got overhead the ability to essentially have daylight come into the top of the stadium as if it were open aired. After doing a little bit more reading, because, my biggest concerns, I was sort of wondering is like, well, did they consider a retractable roof? Why didn't they do that? And it makes a lot more sense the more I have read and educated myself. The reason that they went with fully enclosed dome and not open air or retractable roof is really for the decision was driven by cost efficiency, structural simplicity, and climate control. Retractable roofs are substantially more expensive to build, install, and maintain than fixed domes. From a cost perspective, that makes complete sense. Like, a retractable roof is very expensive to not only build, but also to maintain and then even also to operate. Like, it costs you a lot of money in energy and labor just to move the retractable roof. And there's only a handful or so many stadiums out there that have a retractable roof. And after the Chiefs front office and ownership really surveyed a lot of those organizations and basically asked, like, is this worth the investment? And they pretty much all said no. You don't even really use a retractable roof that often. I get it. I totally get it. I guess what I'm going to miss is the Chiefs having snow games on occasion. I know it doesn't happen often, but the occasional snow game, the cold weather is no longer going to be a factor there during playoff games. So you're kind of taking some of those elements away. Overall, they are able to, with how they design, they are trying to have this still be a very loud indoor stadium. And the barbecue, the tailgating, I think there's like 20,000 some parking spaces. And in a lot of ways, I think the exterior, the parking aesthetic of how people get into the stadium grounds is probably going to be, in some ways, a little bit better than I think how Arrowhead is now. Arrowhead, outside of Arrowhead, can get a little chaotic. But what I like about Arrowhead is there's a lot of, like, the sports complex itself is like flat ground from my memories going there, which is really on occasion. But the surrounding area, there's kind of like these hills, and so it gives off this like deception of like you don't even really know there's like a stadium around there until you come around a turn, and then all of a sudden you see these two massive stadiums being Arrowhead and Kauffman. So, you've got some of those thoughts that I have just about like it is going to be a big change going from Arrowhead to this new stadium. I totally understand not going with a retractable roof, but there's just going to be some things that unfortunately they're no longer going to have. Like you're not going to get as cold of a game again like the Miami Dolphins playoff, the wild card playoff game from a couple years ago. Overall, though, the renderings look great. I mean, very, very sleek, very fresh, modern, just really, really cool. And it'll be cool to see what more of the inside of the stadium looks like. I've said this on my blog elsewhere that I'll go to as many games at Arrowhead as I can over the next few years, especially with moving there. Beyond that, we'll starting in 2031, we'll look to enjoy time at these new Chiefs and Royals stadiums. That's really all I wanted to get into regarding the new stadium, the renderings, just my reaction to that. Of course, there's going to be a lot of Chiefs fans who hate it, and they just hate the fact that we're leaving Arrowhead, but you can't please everyone. It is what it is. The decision's been made. So just to kind of move on, we have to just really appreciate and be grateful for Arrowhead between 2026 and 2030. Now to dive into training camp for a little bit. And like I said, I'm not going to cover really much of training camp since it just started in depth. I've briefly talked a little bit about the Chiefs mini camps over the last couple of months. Something that I think we did a little bit different. I don't really recall if we've done this in years past, but the QBs and rookies actually reported to camp, I believe, last Friday. And they spent a few days together, really just kind of doing like, I don't even know if they did like 7-on-7. Maybe they did 7-on-7, but a lot of it was just kind of like individual position drills. Mahomes and the other QBs, including Justin Fields, throwing to a lot of the rookie receivers, tight ends, handoffs to the running backs. This was a little bit of like a pre-training camp rookie ramp up. I think that's like the best way that I've heard it put from other Chiefs fans out there. Full training camp obviously started today. It was a closed practice to the public. I think tomorrow starts like the first day that fans can actually go and attend. But even today, training camp, I think they did some 7-on-7, some 11-on-11, but they're not in full pads. Like they're wearing shorts and jerseys. I don't even think with shoulder pads. They just have helmets on. I heard someone yesterday say that when someone makes a really, really great grab in training camp or like a mini camp, but they don't have full pads on, it's like one thing. You're really going to find out if someone can hack it in the NFL when they have full pads on. And I agree with that to a certain degree. Full pads in today's NFL, even in training camp, does not mean the same thing that it used to. Back when the Oklahoma drill was still legal, which I'm pretty sure they still do that kind of stuff in college and in high school. In the NFL, years ago now at this point, they outlawed full contact in training camp. I mean, for God's sakes, guys are still getting hurt with non-contact injuries even in training camp. I think on the very first day of Carolina Panthers training camp, like a week or so ago, one of their players that they were hoping to be a pretty big star this year, I think he tore his ACL or ruptured his Achilles like on the first day. Chiefs defensive end Ethan Downs in his second year, he tore his ACL, I think yesterday actually, just yesterday. Sorry, no pun intended. Sorry, Ethan. Knock on wood, I guess. Ethan Downs went down with a torn ACL, and he's done for the year. And so now a lot of fuss around Chiefs Kingdom and concern is that the D-end position, the edge rusher D-end room of the defensive line is already stretched a little bit thin with depth. Overall with training camp, like I just hope and pray that we stay as healthy as we can. Rashee Rice was seen fully participating today, and aside from his jail time, he's also coming off of a recent cleanup surgery done earlier on in the summer. So there was concern back when he was doing his jail time how he was going to rehab and recover while in jail. Mansour Delane is also wearing a yellow non-contact jersey, just like Mahomes and the rest of the quarterbacks. There's been discussion around Chiefs Kingdom, whether Xavier Worthy is he fully back and healthy, coming off of that nagging injury that he was dealing with last year. I think Omar Norman Lott is starting the season on the PUP list. There's always going to be some guys that just they're dealing with injury. I think Felix Uzama is coming off of injury as well. But overall, Mahomes, he was fully cleared medically by the team doctors and staff to participate in all team camp drills, including the full 11-on-11. Mahomes made some really good points in his opening presser during the kind of pre-training camp rookie ramp-up period about a week ago. He was saying, we're not out of the woods yet. This is just another checkpoint along the full road to recovery, and week 1 still remains the target. Just like in years past, I mean, Mahomes isn't going to be hit anyway. He's a QB, he wears the yellow jersey. He's not going to be taking contact. He's not going to be getting hit until preseason. In some ways, not a lot really changes. What's miraculous, though, is that he went down with his torn ACL and LCL in the middle of last December. We're only about 7 months removed from that, and he is already back at training camp. And there was a lot of concern and people wondering, like, is he even going to be, like, is week 1 a lofty goal? Is he going to be even fully himself until the end of 2026? I was talking about this with someone recently. I mean, Mahomes he's just built different. I mean, his dad, after one of the Super Bowl wins, his dad said to him, I think it was after they beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl, his dad said to him, he was like, I think Mahomes was mic'd up, so I caught his dad saying, like, you're built different. Mahomes just has a much higher pain tolerance and ability to rehab and recover than a lot of other people. It's not as uncommon in today's world, just with the medical technology and just things that they know in a physical therapy world with rehabilitation and recovery. Guys return from torn ACLs in the following season pretty much all the time now, compared to years ago. I mean, that was a much more significant injury. Same thing with concussions. It still does not mean that everyone is built the same or that even ACLs are all torn the same way. Sometimes there's complications with surgeries. Tyreek Hill, he tore his ACL and LCL last September, and recent video came out of him, trying to do some rehab and exercising at his own house in his yard, and he was saying he couldn't even put power on that leg, and like the leg doesn't have power, and he even said, like, oh, don't tell my my physical therapist that I'm doing this right now. But maybe Mahomes also just takes rehab and recovery more seriously. Maybe he just has this kind of grit and determination, and he does things the right way, and there's some guys who do things the wrong way. I don't know. Even though he's been fully cleared, I think my two biggest questions is he going to play in the preseason? I assume he will if he's ready. And if week 1 remains the target, I mean, how much are we going to see him in preseason? He and the starters always do this kind of ramp up under Andy Reid, where first preseason game, especially now that we only have 3, not 4, we see him for like a series. Sometimes like literally just like 3 to 4 plays. Preseason game number 2, it's usually like a full drive or like a quarter, I think. And then the final preseason game, it's like the entire first half. I think unlike training camp, preseason wise, depending on how he does in training camp, I just wonder if we're going to see the same gradual progression and participation, like snap count in the preseason games for Mahomes, or if we're potentially going to maybe see that even toned back a little bit more. Like maybe he only appears in 2 of the 3 preseason games. I mean, maybe he plays in all 3 of them, but just even more condensed amounts. I just cannot imagine a world where Andy Reid lets him go into week 1 without any preseason action. It would be a pretty clear progressive sign if he participates in preseason games and he's on track to start week 1. If he doesn't play in the preseason at all, I just can't see him even playing week 1. That's just me. Those are kind of the main questions that I have for Mahomes, like about Mahomes, and as training camp continues. He's still wearing that leg brace. Otherwise, he looks good. There's a lot of people looking really, really closely into a lot of the video clips that have surfaced on like Twitter and just wherever else people are getting this, from training camp, just kind of noticing how he's stepping and pivoting and how he's planting his back and front foot, how he's stepping into throws. I think overall he looks pretty good. Some people are saying like, oh, he's kind of looking gingerly. I think he looks pretty good. It's almost unnoticeable that he even had an injury, but at the same time, he's clearly not going to be pushing it to like the full-on limits in the beginning of training camp. While he's still coming off of this injury, Mahomes has said that he's not going to be running and scrambling as much. He's not going to be trying to initiate contact or take as many hits as he did last year. The big part of this is that he has to prove he can protect himself. So while he's still coming off of this injury, and there was a sports doctor that said after his injury last year that it's very possible that he doesn't feel confident or comfortable with his mobility fully until closer to the end of 2026. So if we're still in that window and that's kind of how things are, I just don't think that Mahomes, we're going to see him trying to test out and move around quite to that extent just yet, especially with just having gotten into training camp. I think we're going to see him ease his way into some of that stuff. I think he's only going to really try to dance around and be mobile and extend plays if he has to when we actually get into the season. Like, it's going to have to be a pretty dire situation late in a game or potential playoff implications on the line. I think there's been a lot of talk, which I find to be positive and reassuring, that we're really going to try to lean on the run game. We're really going to try to lean on the offensive line and the ground attack. I know wide receiver, that room is a huge concern for a lot of people. Rashee Rice coming off injury, Xavier Worthy. We still need to kind of see him take some strides with field sideline awareness. Our lack of deep ball consistently. Can Rice, Worthy, and Thornton really be relied on as like the top three receivers? Do we need some of these younger guys in draft picks like Cyrus Allen to really step up? Do we even really have like a true wide receiver one, lacking big-bodied receivers? Like, a lot of these questions, I mean, outside of the ground attack and the offensive line and hopefully seeing improvements from last year, Travis Kelce's older. You can't expect too much from him in year 14. So a lot of these other receivers are going to have to step up and make this offense work and operate and not make Mahomes feel like he has to carry so much like he did last year. That's kind of the mindset that I have offensively going into this year, is like, I just want to see real progress. I think this has the makings this year of Mahomes potentially winning comeback player of the year. The stage is kind of set for that kind of an opportunity. And I think we just need to see, Mahomes not be a statue pocket passer, but we're really going to have to protect him well and make this offense run without so much reliance on like magician type stuff like we have in years past. Like, I think the last year or two, we feel like we've kind of lost some of that, or like it feels like it's missing, but Mahomes really only pulls that out when he needs to. This offense needs to operate more consistently, kind of by the book in a way, a little bit. And I know sometimes the offense can be very complex and rely a lot on timing. So it'll be interesting to see how much we work in that way. How many RPOs are we going to run, knowing that, Mahomes' mobility is going to be probably a little bit more limited. I think outside of that, I mean, I didn't really touch on the defensive side of the ball, but Chris Jones is not getting any younger as well. We really need to see a boost in the pass rush support with Karlaftis and also some of these younger guys that we've gotten, especially through the draft. The secondary and linebacking core just losing a lot of guys from last season who have been part of our core, and that 2022 draft class. Probably some concerns around just the defense heading into the season from a lot of Chiefs fans out there. I'm trying to stay as optimistic and positive as I can, believing in this team really from offense to defense, Hopefully special teams also improves from last season. Outside of that, like with training camp, this is not the kind of channel where I'm going to go into the nitty gritty details in the weeds. I've said that in the last episode or two. Like, I don't do a lot of draft nerd talk on here. There's a lot of new faces that, like, I'm not going to lie, I still have to kind of refresh myself on. And I talk about this a little bit on my blog post. Like, I've had some people come at me in the comments, over the last couple of months saying that, like, I don't know ball and, like, I don't know the players because I don't watch football. Not true. I watch NFL. I watch college football. I don't really waste my time on a lot of names that I just don't think are even going to be really relevant in the years to come. I only do this once a month because of the fact that during the off season, things are a little bit slower. And this is not the only thing that I do and cover. Life is just very, very busy on my end. I've got a 4-year-old daughter who's recently started preschool, getting ready to move to Kansas City. So we are, packing up the house. We're moving stuff, making donations, trying to get rid of a lot of stuff, junk removal, that kind of thing. It's also baseball season. So, as much as the Royals are not doing well right now, I'm big into the Royals and baseball season. Big hockey fan. I play hockey and baseball in rec leagues, beer leagues. I certainly live and breathe the Chiefs, but during the season, we're going to get into this more and more frequently, like I did last year, where I blog once a week. I usually try to come out with a podcast episode on a weekly basis. But, beyond that, I am also trying to change careers long term. It's a gradual progression, but I'm trying to be a videographer, video editor, content creator, YouTuber, but also work kind of on the production side, both behind the camera and in front a little bit. So I've been making some strides in that. I've got a couple of YouTube channels outside of this one. So I make videos on a weekly, daily basis outside of just like Chiefs content. Just kind of want to throw that out there that, like, this is not my full-time thing, but it's something that I like having kind of a Chiefs corner and outlet personally for myself, because if I don't, I will talk my wife's ear off about the Chiefs from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed. Anytime I talk with my mom, we usually talk about the Chiefs at some point or another. This is not the kind of channel to come to if you're looking for the, like, deep analysis on third and fourth stringers and, like, snap counts and, like, what kind of stunts defensive linemen are running against the offensive line, like pass rush win rates, blocking win rates. Like, I listen to a lot of that stuff, but I just don't feel the need to get into a lot of, like, that level of stats and, like, the math around that and, like, projections. Like, look, during the season, yes, I'm going to probably dive a little bit deeper on a week-to-week basis on certain plays and moments in games for sure. But I don't see the point sometimes of, like, overloading a lot of that stuff, because it can just be a level of analysis that at the end of the day, some of it doesn't even really matter. Like, practice is key, reps are key, but, like, I'm not going to analyze how someone got X number of reps in practice versus this person, and, oh, that means that this person's going to get cut and this person's not. We're going to see this roster. There are a whole bunch of names that are invited to training camp that I don't know who they are, okay? Beyond the core, beyond the list of guys that we've had from the last couple of years, beyond, like, the rookie picks, draft picks, right? There are a lot of UDFAs that I don't know. I'm sorry, I just don't. But it does not take away anything less of me being a Chiefs fan, more or less than the next Chiefs fan. I like my approach to kind of be similar to, there's a podcast duo on KCSN, Amateur Hour. I really like how they don't get too nerdy and detailed, but they definitely talk about some storylines, some opinions, some feelings, mixed emotions about the state of the team that I think are worth me kind of replicating a similar feel on this podcast, on this channel. Just kind of wanted to throw that out there before I end today, just because, again, I'm only doing this once a month for now. I blog once a month. I upload a podcast video once a month, because this is it's no longer the off season. This is really the preseason now. Leading up to this is the July episode. August will come out with another final monthly blog post and podcast episode, probably in the midst of the preseason games. So probably between, like, the first and second, or maybe second and third. We'll just have to see, because at the end of August, I'm going to be very, very busy also packing up this desk and office studio to get ready to hit the road, Jack. We'll come out with one more video in August, and then starting in September, once I get set up in our new place, I'm hoping to come out with weekly episodes recapping each game and looking ahead to the next week's game. That is going to do it for this edition of Win or Lose Chiefs News. Again, I am your host, Alex Liu. Please subscribe, leave me a comment down below, like this video, share this video, this channel. Check out my blog. I will have a link to that down below in the description of this video. And I would love to hear from you if you are a Chiefs fan who currently lives out of market, outside of Kansas City, like me at the moment. Also, anyone who does live in the KC area, I will be moving your way end of August, and I am excited to start the next chapter of my life with my family out in Kansas City. It's been a long time coming. I am finally returning home to where I was born. Not exactly where I was born. I was actually born in Overland Park, Kansas, and then moved to KCMO, but we will be in the KC area on the Missouri side, so really looking forward to that. That will do it for this video. I will see you guys next time. Chiefs Kingdom, please stay tuned for the next episode, and let's go Chiefs.